Yes, 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 yes. Um, Hi guys. Welcome to the Phenomenal Lighting Masterclass series online. I'd like to introduce our special guest tonight, Erich Bertti, all the way from Brazil. I am super excited to have him with us tonight. And before we start, I just want to say thank you, Erich, for agreeing to do this. It really means a lot to me. And also, I would like just to say, I'm just going to briefly speak about what he has done. Is quite long, so I think it'll take up the whole hour to try and talk about his achievements that he's achieved in the industry. So Erich is a lighting designer, he's a programmer, he's an operator and a director of photography. And he has 22 years of career, almost 2/3 of his life. Erich comes from the basics of tech, dimmerman, rigger, crew, and chief of project manager for 14 years. I think there's another one that interested me that I saw on your bio, that you won on the same year, 2014. You won the Grandma Latin America Contest for Lighting Designer, Programmer, and Operator. And in the more recent years, he has worked. His work is focused in the music industry and on esport and events. I think this is just the few stuff that I can say about what he's accomplished. The other things I think I'll leave to him so that he can actually tell us in detail about his journey in lighting and just being an all-rounder, from being a rigger to becoming a director and an operator and programmer. I think it's just amazing. So I'll just leave this time to Erich to tell us more about his journey in lighting.
All right, hello everybody. Good evening. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank you all for spending this time with me to, listen to me talking a little bit about my passion. I have to say that I am one of those very traditional lighting guys where I really love what I do, and I have an ultimate respect for the art of lighting. I don't see lighting as like a science or something that you can be empirical about it. I see lighting as an emotional state, as an emotional protest of some sort. So the same way as we are all individuals, I believe that lighting is an individual aspect of whoever creates it, and it's a moment of bonding between an audience or a client that you're delivering something, a creation of, it's a part of yourself that you put up, over there. So, so I think that, for me particularly, it began pretty much as I think the majority of the industry. I was very young. I was, younger than 14 years old, around, I don't know, maybe 1996, like 12, when they had this big festival here in my hometown. It was a beach festival, music festival. And then, so all these guys came into town and they looked like rock stars, right? So they came in and put all the truss in on the floor and like start rigging stuff. And I was in the beach with my family and I watched it all. And actually that was my uncle's company. My uncle was a founder and it's now CEO of one of the biggest companies in Latin America called LPL, which is Lighting Productions Limited. And he was working already with this giant rig of bar cans, and the manual chain hoists, and all these guys would just come in with such a rock attitude, putting the rig together and focusing the cans. And so I stayed the whole day in the beach, just hanging with them, up until the point where they had the console coming up and all that. And everything was so magical to me. And I felt like, wow, I want to be one of those guys, like a guy that steps into a place and people just go like, what the hell? And at that time, my brother, I am the youngest of three brothers. My older brother, so the oldest, he's a director of photography as well. And he worked through his career with the video aspect. So he was a cameraman and grew up to, become a director. And my middle brother is also one of the CEOs for LPL today. And he was doing a tech gig into this festival. So I was just like tagging along and staying with him and watching, things happen. And I remember that I ran one of the follow spots for that show. So I climbed all the way into the tower, it was a SCAF tower, and I was like so high, oh my God, and for like a 12-year-old. And I ran like a couple of shows, and I just fell in love with that. It was. We have a saying here in Brazil that it's like a bug. Once you get bit, you're done for it. Like you can't run from it. So then I started to, have the interest into seeing more shows, into, chase all the information regarding that. But back in that day, it wasn't like we had the internet, we had nothing. So it was more like just keeping track of my brother and, when is going to be the next gig? Like, can I go? Can I tag along? And then my mom and dad would say, if you take your brother, you have to take care of him. So, I have to say that I owe a lot of...
Be responsible.
Sorry?
I'm saying he had to be responsible for you, your brother.
Exactly. So I owe a lot to my middle brother, because he really took me into his, which would be his work. It was also like, he was not playing, but he was not, a proper technician yet, because he was so young. And so he started to take me, tag me along into some gigs up until 98. So by then I was 14 years old. And they had this big thing, which was Oasis playing in São Paulo. And they were like the top of the, of the cream at that time. And the guy running the console, I can't recall if the lighting designer was him, but he was operating programming. It was Danny Nolan, which is Police and Sting's lighting designer for, nowadays. And he's a big friend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we became friends from that day on. And and he did, and he blew my mind. I was calling spots for that show and translating already, and I helped to set up everything, and on that particular show, I made the decision that I would work with that. This is what I want to do. Like, I want to be like Danny. I want to, make the lights do whatever I want. And, I've always had this kind of a creative aspect of, what I'm going to do with my life. I want to do something creative, that involves creation. And so at 98, I really started to take this seriously. So every weekend that I could, because we live in Santos, which is like an hour from São Paulo. It's not the same city. So I would take the bus, go to São Paulo and work with whatever gig they had. So they had like small fairs, they had like small conventions, anything that I could go and learn a little bit about the systems, about rigging, about, tech in general. And then I remember I would steal the manuals for the fixtures, like Cyberlights, and I would grab the manuals and take home and spend a week just reading them. And then on the other weekend, I would come back and just put it back, in the drawers. I remember when I was doing like in school, I would do like ETC gobos from like Coke cans and, try putting stuff on lamps. Like, I really got into that, what can I do to make such an amazing lighting show, like I had seen. So up until 2000, so in this couple of years, it was very much like an exploration period for me. Like, what is lighting? You know, how light would affect me in everything that I would see. I would see a game of shadows, you know, on the sun, into some sculptures or into some windows, and like I would go to churches and see how the colors reacted to all that, you know, different times of the sun. And so that brought me all the way into a very, you know, focused mindset on finding myself into this lighting world up until 2004, when I went to college. And that was in São Paulo. So I went to live with my two brothers in São Paulo. I started working on a venue under, my brother was a crew chief over there, and I worked a lot with him. So I learned a lot on that period about everything that I could. I started doing, like I got this Vectorworks from the company. So I started reading all the manuals and start, you know, messing with the Vectorworks as well. And, you know, at that time I would have like a little knowledge on the Avo lights, you know, the Pearl and everything you can imagine. Like I would do it, you know, I would always embrace the challenge of doing something new. You know, people told me, so people normally tell me like, okay, this is like the new high-end studio colors, you know, we just got. And I would just like, it's mine. Like I would tear it apart on a Sunday when there was no work, and, you know, and learn about the motors and how they work. And like, you know, everything was such a futuristic thing, you know, and I knew that this, you know, was for me. But then, you know, in Brazil, being, you know, a third world country where there's a lot of difficulties into you, like having a proper job, a proper paycheck, you know, people don't see, like these guys, what we call like the rock and rollers, you know, these guys were all about like rock and roll and drugs, and everything was kind of mixed into people's minds. So when you say like, I work in the show business, people would go like, really? Like, but what about the drugs and all the alcohol and all
what is that?
And we were like, no, we're just, you know, we're normal people, but we do shows, and that's, you know. But anyway, so I had a lot of pressure. I would say like, not even like, it was not my family, because there were a lot of people in my family that work in the business. But I had a little pressure, maybe from myself onto a society situation where I said like, you know, I want to do college, graduate, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do. So around 2004, it was my first year of college. At the end of the year, like I was really into it. I loved college. It was great. And we had one festival where I was in charge of like this big tent. It was like an electronic tent. And that was my first time alone with an Avo console and all the system to make it work, and like 4 guys under my, you know, my management, and how we're going to do this. And that was the breaking point where I knew that if at any given point it would come to a choice between college and lighting, I would pick lighting. And that actually happened a few years ago in 2008. Like I am a college dropout. I never finished my class. Like I had everything up until where you have to, since it was like a state college, I had to work with no payment for a whole year, like to pay the state the debt that they put in my education. But I was already on a steamroll of tours and all in Brazil, and I couldn't finish. So at that time, when I finished that gig on my first year of college, and I knew that, you know, I want to be a lighting designer, that was when I realized that my first rule, you know, my first, you know, tip or, you know, advice for the young ones just getting into the businesses, you have to realize what is your concept of lighting. After all that study that I did, and all the situation that my country goes through, you know, like I would see these big productions coming in, and they would bring all these like Mac 500s, you know, like 36 Mac, you know, and I would go like, wow, they have so much money, they have so much structure. All the guys had so much education into things, you know, and tools. And I would go like, wow, like their cases had wheels that really just roll, you know. Our wheels were like 5 guys push the wheels. No, they were just like one guy just pushed one hand, and you go like, what? This is crazy, you know. And like harnesses for riggers, like we would go like, you know, we were mind blowing.
Mind blowing.
So at that time, around like 2005, I discovered that I would have to be resourceful without resources.
Yes.
And that's when I established my concept of lighting, which for me is darkness is free. So every lighting fixture will cost you money, but darkness, it's always free.
It's free.
So that was my first, you know, something that was just imprinted into my soul, and it's something that I love up until this day. Like I play a lot with shadows, I play a lot with backlights, and only one side lighting, and I have a rig of hundreds of fixtures, and then in one particular song I was just one fixture. I want the stage to be black so that people can enjoy darkness in a situation, especially in the days, you know, in the actual days that we live. Like everything's so much lights. Like the TV have like wall lighting, and you see these big billboards, and you see, you know, everything's so much. Look at me.
The screens as well.
Exactly. That sometimes just a little darkness will bring people, you know, into that moment where they go like, wow, that looks really good. So, you know, this would be my first advice, you know, for you guys to just absorb your environment and define what kind of concept of lighting is your path to go. You know, what kind of, let's say, spectacle you want to deliver, you know, because there's nothing wrong in being this guy that loves all colors and want to do like this beautiful palette and shoot colors everywhere. It's fine. It's just in a way of how you express yourself, and there's no right and wrong.
And wrong, yes. I also believe that it's all about how you perceive the light and the color. For instance, I prefer the steels, you know, and the golds, the rose, because it's not, for me, it's not too harsh, you know. It doesn't take too much away from the subject, you know. And I really believe that what you're saying, that you have to define what it is for you as a designer, you know, and then work with that.
Exactly. You know? And it's always going to be a process. We're always evolving. We're always changing. Of course, you're not going to be the same person you were 5 years ago, but and that also evolves into your lighting concept. But I do believe that as soon as you can discover that, you can mold it and forge it into a way that's going to work for you throughout your life, you know. So
definitely.
So from there on, things started to just go. I used to work with my brother. He used to be the lighting designer for Sepultura, and I would go and hang the backdrop and run the follow spots and be there. So I ended up doing Sepultura after him, and then the company aspect of the things started getting really powerful, really heavy. And, you know, my brother needed me to be like a project manager for everything because I knew all the systems and all the gear and all the guys, and things started going really well. And in 2007, we had the Pan American Games in Rio de Janeiro. And we received the company called Procon from Germany, which is now part of PRG. And they came in, all these Germans, you know, with their big boots and, you know, and all their fancy tools. And that was, I worked with them for 2 months. They're my friends up until this day. I love them. In the future, I ended up lived in Berlin for a while and worked with some Procon guys, and it was amazing. But at that time at the Pan American Games, I learned like my second rule or advice for you guys, which was plan yourself ahead. This is like the concept of prepping and scheduling work. It's really good. It's not because lighting is not exact, it's an art. It's not just because of that things just have to go all over the place. Like, you have to have a plan, you have to have a schedule, you have to think that you're part of a bigger production. You have sound, then you have video, then you have stagehands, then you have the scenic. Everything needs to come together and coexist into this harmonic environment. So this was like a big thing for me all throughout my life. It was, I plan myself ahead, like as early as I can get, because that way I know that I will be better prepared to deal with any sort of emergency or changes or situations, which anybody from lighting knows it happens 100% of the time. You will never in your life do a plot that will be exactly as, everything will change, it will fucking flip sideways, and you want to kill yourself. And, if you have never been into that situation, you're not doing it right. That's how I always say. So the German scheduling, it was something really good for me to absorb. And then things start really evolving into the company, and how, everything was just, we were working in a very productive way, a very European way, because we're very, we're Latins. So we shout, we scream, and we move our hands, and things get done. But, the Germans really brought this sense of unity and hierarchy, and respect. And like, yes, I'm young, but if I'm telling you that this is this way, it's because this is the way. And so everything became more professionalized, we would say like that, And then we became more united as a crew, because we look at those guys and say, okay, yeah, they had the money, they had the education, but like, we can do this, we can be as good as they are. Like, it's not, it's not a big deal. Let's just go for it. So I had this big crew that was very, hardworking men, wanted to be better, today than yesterday. So, they really worked hard, and it was great. So after that time, around 2008, I had an opportunity to leave Brazil. I did a few shows with Disney, and I had a proposition to go away, touring with them as an electrician. And then I had, other gigs that was just, everything was happening. So I dropped out of college. All of a sudden, like, Mom, Dad, I have enough money saved. I'm going. I just want to take this leap of faith and see what's going to happen. I ended up in London, as I mentioned to you, like, and then, I spent some time with Patrick Woodruff, the legend. It was
the legend. Yes. I call him the Prince of Light. Like, he's just so amazing.
He's my Gandalf. And and then but I saw myself in a very tough situation, because I didn't have any papers, any documents that I could prove that I knew lighting. And in the UK, this is very strict. So I was doing some stagehands work for the dismantling of shows, and people would just pay me a little money, from their own money, and I would help, like, loading the trucks and stuff like that. And then I had this opportunity, and I was speaking with Danny back in the day, Danny Nolan, that used to do the Oasis, and he said, hey, my brother, he's looking for like a guy to do a theater show. Why don't you call him, and maybe you can do it. And so I call him up. His name is Steve Nolan. He's also like this big lighting designer from UK. He does a lot of TV stuff, but he's a magical human being. And he said, hey, Eric, like, I can give you this chance, like, because my brother also did this show, like, back in the day when he used to live in London. It was a theater show with the Shaolin monks. And he said, but I don't have a lot of money, because you don't have the papers and stuff, and you would have to just go and, like, do everything yourself. Like, I would have to unload the trucks, rig the system, program, run the show, dismantle, load the truck, next city,
No,
And I
that's
said,
a
yeah, I'll do
lot.
it. Yeah. And I said, I'll do it. Let's go. I want to work. This is my time. This is me, like, done. And I remember that we prepped that show really good. I was already with my like German mindset onto this, but I got to meet this guy. This guy's called Rich Gorod. He's from PRG UK. He's like the biggest crew chief I've ever seen.
Okay.
Among like nowadays I have like other idols, but Rich was just like absurd. His knowledge onto everything, how everything works, is just ridiculous. So
Crazy.
we had like these FD racks from Avos, and I had the VO5s and 6s with smart repeaters on the rig, and I was astonished to have all these fixtures. I had like 12 fixtures automated, So I did this amazing prep, and it took me like 2 hours to put the whole show alone into the air, with the fly bars and the local crew, of course, always. And on that year, I did all cities in the UK, I would say, like maybe like the big ones, of course. And I did a whole year of touring in the UK with that show. And over there, I learned 2 lessons that I think it's very important for everybody. From Steve Nolan, which was the director of the show. When he stepped into the production, the console had crashed. Like we had this show on Hog 3, and the console had crashed, and the show was just corrupted. And I said to him, look, I'll have to go from scratch. Like I had a DVD from the previous tour. So I was like watching the DVD and recreating the visuals onto a Hog 2. And I said, I prefer a Hog 2 because it's more stable. I know it's older, but I don't like the Hog 3s. And that was my personal taste at the time. And he was like, if you think you're up to the task, let's go, And I redid it all the show. And then on the night prior to the grand opening, he sat next to me and he said, I want to see the show. Let's go. Just press play on the audio and we'll see how it goes. And he corrected every single cue of the show, like everything. And he would go like, okay, over here you get that ETC 10% less intensity. That cue, you get that VO6, and just put everything you can imagine. And at a certain point, I was feeling very frustrated. I was like, fuck this guy, like. And then when I pressed play again after all the corrections, I was just like, it was so better, it almost felt, like, okay, this guy really knows what he's doing, because I was so rock and roll, and that was my thing, like, so everything full on, and and he just dimmed everything down and creates the theatrical look that it really needed.
Yes.
And he looked at me and said, I could sense your frustration. I am really glad that you didn't say anything, which proves me that you're a very mature young guy. And I have to tell you that all these details, they really matter. He said, intensity matters.
It's everything. Yes.
For the human eye, for the human brain, everything correlates differently to an overly lit stage from, So this is something that I really absorbed, and I always keep repeating to myself, like, intensity matters, This is my one thing that I have to say that really bugs me into this new EDM, DJs, gigantic looks and stuff, because like everything is just in your face. And yes, it looks amazing because it's all these effects, the bitmaps and the pixel mapping and like eye candy, but everything is just like, wow,
it's too much.
For me, my personal opinion, yes, I think it's, there's a lot of respect for people that can deliver that kind of, show. But it's not my personal taste. I prefer watching something that just pulls me into the spectacle and I go like, wow, this guy is just like, you know, he had 6 licos, 12 bars, but like, you know, he was precise. And the music was, you know, it's sexy when you go and say, wow, the lights are dancing to the music, you know. So this rule for me is gold, you know, the details and the intensity, that they matter. And then with Rich Golrod, I absorbed this fourth rule for me, which is you have to make sure that anyone can do what you just did, you know. So when we were prepping that show, he was so like detailed onto how things were. Everything was labeled, everything was different colors, everything was like, and he was like, we're gonna waste hours prepping this because you're gonna enjoy days when you go on the road. Because he knew I would be alone, and he knew that this was a lot of work. So he said, if one day you have a stomach ache or a headache or you hurt yourself, you have to make sure that anyone can do it. So it was the same on my cue lists, on my tracking. You have to make sure that, because it's hard for me to talk about lighting without talking about programming, which is such a, you know, for me, such a merge. Like, yes, one day, who knows? I want to be like Patrick Woodruff, that has the best programmers available. And he goes like, you know, I don't want to learn the Granimate 3. It's fine. Like, I just call this guy and his WizKid. But for me, it's part of my reality, which is like the majority of times I have to be my own programmer. So I am very detailed onto all this, and I make this a very standard rule for me, which is make sure anyone can do it. It's not like make sure anyone can do your job. It's not like that. It's just you have to keep things in a certain pattern of understanding. You know, you go like, there's no way I'm going to plug all these cables here and like whatever, you know. Sometimes you have a situation where I have to kill a lamp and you have to know exactly what you want to do. You don't want to kill that one lamp that's on and one faulty one, and then you pull the plug and you kill the one that's okay. You go like, okay, I just blew my show, and you know. So this was a good rule for me, and this whole tour was a very good prep for me. When I got back to Brazil, I was still living on the UK. Like I had a house there. I didn't have a house in Brazil here, but I came back for, you know, to see the family, and then there was some work coming up. And then it was the first time that Sepultura went to Europe. And because I used to do the Latin America tours, Brazil tours, and then they went to Europe and said, you want to go? And I was like, oh yeah, let's go get to, you know other places, you know, the rest of the world that you know, it was a big dream for me since I was a child. And those were happy days for me, happy years. Like I am a rock guy, so I love Sepultura. I love the thrash metal. They are an amazing group of guys. They, you know, they're like big brothers for me, became part of my family. And from there, I started, you know, getting to know people from the metal industry, the rock, and all those guys. They're amazing. I had, you know, I worked with a lot of guys. I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people that just became like idols of mine, that became friends. We had beers together and, you know, talked about life. And then when I was doing a tour with Iron Maiden, when I was doing a front of house technician for Rob Coleman, which was a designer at the time, he still is up until this day. He used to be Martin Brennan, and then he passed the torch to Rob Coleman. And I got something from Rob, which was, it's my number 5 rule, which is you have to know your music, or in any other situations, your client. Like, of course, you're not going to be 100% working with something you like. Sometimes you have to do, I don't know, you know, like, I don't like country music, but, you know, if they pay the bills, for sure I'll be there, and I will even enjoy it by, you know, after a few shows. And you know, some clients as well. Like I don't go well with banks, but yeah, I'll do a bank convention any day. Just call me up and, pay my check. It's fine. So there is a little study that you have to do. So you don't just there's a lot of traps when when you start dealing with people, when you're doing fixtures, life is great.
Yeah.
But people can be hell. So so when you study your music, your clients, and you understand that for a band, their life is music. Like lighting is just something, it's a cherry on top of the sundae. But what they want to know is how's the audio, how did it sound? And I was like, it sounded very, very heavy for me. Thank you. So, but once you start, studying people and understanding their likes and their dislikes, and, so you get your artist and you show some video of something and he goes like, this is cool. And then you start, tracking how he wants to go, what he expects, and how, and you start to accomplish things a little bit easier, I would say, the same thing happens like if you're doing a corporative with a company that's very like family based, and then you start to be like a guy that you really, dress up. You go like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. Let's go. We're a corporation. So you get into people's heads, you start picking their brain and putting that into your lighting. It's something that will, it helps a lot. So that's my like number 5 rule. It's like, you have to know your clients, their tastes, what they likes, they dislikes, and just use that as an ally when you're, make concepts and creating stuff. After that, I came back to Brazil. Like it was around 2010. I wanted to be here. I wanted to, make a family, have an apartment. I was kind of tired of the road, and so I from there I did a lot of stuff here. I got back to big events for the company as well. And then in 2014, I realized that I didn't want to be a company guy anymore. Like I had to make this decision where the show business, it would either be show or business, and I would see my brother every day, and he was becoming a businessman. He had this big company to manage, and I didn't want that for my life. Like I know it sounds silly, but like I want to be an artist. I want to live doing art. Like even if I broke, I want to be happy, and that was a decision that I made when I was very young. Because if I want to make money, I would probably be, had to finish college and have a degree and have a good job. So when I got to in 2014, we had this massive New Year's show in the Copacabana beach in Rio de Janeiro. It's for millions of people. It's like 5 million, 10 million people. So it was just giant stage. And I did one design that was like, the stage was like 12 meters tall. And I had these finger trusses. And I said, when we start the countdown, because there's all the fireworks that comes from the boats, right, on the ocean. So I said, when we had the countdown, everybody will face to the ocean, and I will bring all these 9-meter towers all over the stage with motors, and everybody was just like, and so when they go Happy New Year, they turn back to the stage. It will be a different stage, all set up with these gigantic towers, and we're gonna have a fucking amazing light show. And that was my 3rd show with the artist that I do up until this day. It's called Seu George. He's from Brazil, and he's an amazing, multi-talented artist. He's an actor, and he's, he paints, and he's very big in Brazil. And then I remember up until this day when people go like, Happy New Year, and turn around, and this massive stage was there, and we did an amazing show. We were recording, but it never went out to be a DVD. And on that gig, I remember I was so stressed on the few days coming through the New Year's, and I was like, oh, this is not gonna happen. Like the towers, if one tower collapse and people don't know, whatever. And then this guy, which is like a big a teacher for me, it's called Naldo Bueno. He now lives in Portugal, but he's Brazilian, and he teaches. He does classes. Also, if you wanna, like in the future, we can make this contact happen. And he told me my 6th golden rule, which is, Erich, you will always be more capable tomorrow than today. Always. So don't burn out, don't stress. And this is something that for the youngers nowadays is very complicated for them to understand, because the clients they're very, in a sort of way, they're very aggressive into what they want, and they want it now, and they want it all. And normally you have the tripod of production, which is like money, time, and quality, right? So if you want something that it's really good and it's really fast, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and so on. Like this trifecta have to be respected. But nowadays it's just like, I want everything cheap and fast and good, and do it. And the guys go like, pressing buttons and climbing stuff. So this is something I always say on the road, like, there comes to a point where we go, don't burn out, just like, hold on, you will be more capable tomorrow than today. Like, relax, take a deep breath, and you move forward. I have to go a little bit faster because it's like Q&A time. But so I did a lot of touring in the US after that, which was very complicated, because in the US, either you're Taylor Swift, Justin Timberlake, or Jay-Z, or you're nobody. Like there's no in between. Like the productions in between are very complicated to accomplish. So that's where I learned my 7 gold rule, which is make less, become more. So if you have a rig with not enough, fixtures for you to just like go crazy, just make less look more. Just use it wisely. Don't, waste everything. Don't just go full on. Just like get people just wonder what's next, what will come next in the next song, and how to create all this
so like you can have on your rig, so like you can have say the par 6-4s, and have lasers, and then have, I don't know, moving heads. So like you bring them in at different times, so you have different effects for.
Exactly. And even like if you have like myself, if you have a good friend on tour, you can use them to like move lights on stage and focus things, from one song to another, just change gels, just change gobos, So people will say like, oh, this fixture was there and now it's red with different gobo.
Do you still use gels?
Oh yeah, I love them. I don't really like LEDs. I don't think they don't have anything to do with me.
I hate LEDs.
Yeah,
I hate LEDs.
Yeah, I'm a tungsten guy, but it's something that you have to know how to use as well, because or else it just becomes something that is just like, becomes too much, even when it's not enough in numbers. It becomes too much on volume on stage, but yeah, I do love it. And then after that, I started doing a lot of esports, which is something gigantic nowadays. It's this competition of video games, and I went to China for the first time, and over there I did the Bird's Nest in Beijing, which is the stadium, Olympic stadium, and I did over 1,200 Sharpies on my console. So I had over like 2,000 fixtures on my control, and over there working for this amazing lighting designer and director of photography called Arnold Cerami. He taught me my 8th rule, which is nobody remember the cues, but they will remember the moments. So sometimes you're just like I had like so many moving lights. I was doing positions for a whole night for 1,000 Sharpies on the air. Like, I want to do this. Everything is really straight. And he would go and say, let's go have dinner. You know, I have this amazing place. They have pork and deep fried with Chinese, whatever. And I was like, no, but I really want to do this position. And he said, dude, nobody will remember the cues, but we'll always remember the moments. Like if you go to dinner with me now and we have an amazing time, forever we'll be friends that remember this time. And that's the same with the audience. Like, you don't have to be such a perfectionist into something that you know that the audience will not respond to. You know, you have to create the moment that they will absorb and take home with them and say, oh, that light with the mirror globe was amazing. Like, and then you do this effect of 3 colors just, you know, going tilts, and wow, this is amazing. He's such a big programmer. But then people just remember that mirror ball with the, you know, the stars aspect. So, you know, focus a little bit more onto making your show memorable, other than making your show like, you know, a technological accomplishment. Like, it's not something that's worth it, you know.
Yeah.
And then we go up until this last year, in 2019. I had the utmost honor of touring with Metallica. I was lighting design for Ghost, which is the Swedish rock band. Was my latest project, and they were a support band for Metallica with Rob Koenig, which is one of my idols of all time. He's an absolutely genius on the. And Metallica has a thing where they record all of their shows, and you get a ticket, and you can go online and download the show for you to watch it. So you have this memory of the show, you know, forever. And so before that, when I was doing Ghost and coming into Metallica, I spent 21 days programming Ghost, and it was a masterpiece for me. I was like, wow, I just did this amazing show. Oh my God, I'm gonna blow people's minds. It's gonna be amazing, a gigantic rig and this. And when I went to Sweden, I presented the show to the artist, and he was like, yeah, it's so pretty, but it's like, it's not me, you know.
21 days, and he says that.
Yeah, so I automatically said, you're right. Like, because this is me. This is me doing lights for me on a 3D model, right? And then I used all my other rules, which is study your clients, you know, and prep yourself. And I came back to him a week after that with a different show. I dimmed, I controlled my intensities. So, you know, I applied everything that we just talked about. And I show him the show, and he was like, that's me. That's a good show. But in this period, I had a lot of trouble accepting that. You know, I would go back to my hotel room every day and say, I'm going to quit, because I had this, you know, best show ever. And, you know, I don't want to kill all the lights at this point because he says so. And, you know, and stuff like that. So I had to absorb all that. And I ended up calling one of my friends, and he said, Erich, even Michelangelo had to do it. When the Pope, you know, got him to do the Sistine Chapel, he didn't want to do it. He wanted to sculpt, but he had to paint, or, you know, so suck it up, you know, life is not all flowers. And this is something that I really try to bring to the guys that work with me, like, suck it up, you know, even Michelangelo, like, who are you compared to Michelangelo? And he had to do it. So from time to time in your life, there's going to be some Pope that is going to say, I don't care. I say paint, and you say, how high, you know? So you have to understand that lighting is, as I mentioned before, part of a bigger thing, of a bigger production. The productions nowadays are an organism, right? So you have artists as the brain and production as the heart, and everybody, you know, just like being the limbs, and lighting is just something that has to complement all that. If you have this way of merging yourself into it, you will not have problems. by the time you want to fight against it, you know, it's, you lose everything. Like in the battle of, like, sometimes I see guys that want the lights to be the show, but there's an artist over there, you know. The lights are up there just because the artist's over there. So this is something you have to think about it, and never, you know, forget what you're doing there. And then my last golden rule, which was, you know, I absorbed that from Rob Koenig into that situation when Metallica records their show, and something that he said to me is that nowadays everybody has a cell phone, so every light show is a camera show. You have to light everything you do as if it was a broadcast. Okay, of course, you want to play with shadows, you want to play with darkness, you do it, but you just have to hone your skills to learn a way to do it that it looks both good in camera and in a live situation, you know, because nowadays that's it. Like, you can be the greatest ever, and then you do something and a 16-year-old grabs a cell phone and film it, and your artist sees it and go like, what the fuck is this? I look like an alien. I'm all blue. It's contrasted, like, you know, and you go like, yeah, there's, you know. So I think that if you're coming into the lighting industry right now, learning about camera, photography, and how it reacts to the irises of cameras and also the irises of humans, it's something that will help you out a lot. Yeah, because, you know, nowadays it's all about that. Like, I can do great things in the lighting world, and then any guy that pushes buttons for DJs can have 20,000 followers on Instagram, and he's making like a lot of money just like flashing stuff. And I'm like, okay,
really,
I'll stick with the park ends. If it's a personal taste, that's fine. But, you know, it's just something that you have to consider, you know, that everybody has a camera. The world's just like that nowadays. And with the pandemic stage, who knows what tomorrow will be, you know? Maybe this is what lighting will be from now on, like, for people with a distance, not for people, you know, to, I don't know. So so there you go.
Wow.
Those are like my 10 fundamental advices, I would say. You know, it's a roller coaster ride to be a lighting designer, because you find yourself away from your family, you find yourself in these amazing places sometimes, and all, you know, you want to give an arm to not be there and be away. You lose a lot of special dates. You have friends that love you, but then it comes to the point where they're just tired of calling you and you're never around. So everything is just, it can be bittersweet, like life itself. But what I can say is, you just have to find that passion, you know, within you, and, you know, not give up, because it's something beautiful. It's something magical. You know, I keep like my kids, I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. And if any lights come onto the TV, my 1-year-old says, it's Daddy's show. And my 4-year-old, since she was very young, I would go to a tour for like 2 months. You know, it was a lot. And I would tell her, Daddy gotta go make people happy. That's what Daddy does. You know, like, I never spoke to my kids about money. And this is something very important, like, because sometimes you get a good paycheck, sometimes you get a shitty paycheck. But what matters is your personal paycheck. How are you feeling regarding what you do, you know? And I always, you know, used to say that to her. I say, Daddy helps people to laugh and to enjoy and have memorable moments, because that's what, you know, concerts are, and that's what corporative events are. You know, sometimes someone is just getting an award. Sometimes someone is just like getting married into a concert. Sometimes people are just like going to see their favorite band because their father passed away and they used to do that together. Or, you know, you're always adding something to people. And that's why I think that lighting is so important into that emotion moment. You know, if you can create something that will last, in somebody's heart and memory, then you're
Mm-hmm.
a successful lighting designer.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for the for the golden rules. Just now you were saying that when you're doing lighting, you're always away from friends and family. At the moment, you remember yesterday I was saying I'm in Bulawayo. I actually had to move from where I'm staying. I'm actually in some hotel room because I'm working. And I left my kids at home, you know. It's actually always difficult because I believe that lighting demands your heart. You can't do it with your head. It has to be coming from your heart. At the same time, family and friends also demand your heart. So I always find myself in that space where I'm trying to balance between being a mother and being a lighting person, creating and just being part of this magical thing that a lot of people actually don't even understand what it means for us. You know, when we're creating, when we're getting to the creative process, you know, it like you get pulled into the, if it's a play or it's a concert, you're reading the script, like you want to feel what the actor is feeling in the script, so you can start creating the effects that maybe the director wants to see, you know. And I'm just glad that I'm not alone in this. It feels like you might be over where you are and I'm here, but we are facing the same challenges. We are feeling, so I have moments where I'm just lonely, you know, like something's wrong with me. But of late I've realized that it's not just me, it's what the industry demands of us. Being a creative is not, it's not an easy thing. It's not a normal thing to normal people, you know. It's, yeah. But so thank you for sharing your journey with us.
I met an artist that used to say to me, I live 5 years in 5 minutes. And this is exactly how we feel when we go into production, you know, where like we know that everything needs to be perfect and it needs to be on time, and it needs, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. There's so many people involved. It almost feels like when you do like a big tour and you're away for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, you go back home and it feels like, you know, 5 years have passed. You know,
Yes,
everything looks
definitely
different for you because you just deliver yourself heart and soul 100% purely into that. I can't even begin to imagine how difficult it must be to be a woman into the business. In Brazil, we still have a very sexist system. Like it's a boys' game, you know, there's few women and they're normally better. When they come to the job, we go like, okay, there's a woman, it's all fine. But outside in Europe and in US, there's a lot of girls and they just bring this amazing spice to it because it's just different, like the way that they handle things, you know. And
yeah.
and my dream was always to be a father. And when I became a father, everything on the road kind of conflicted. Like nowadays, because of the pandemic and stuff, I do therapy, and it's one of my main discussions with my therapist is like how to, you know, conciliate my work and my kids. Like I want, like in this pandemic stage, it's like, yeah, I'm with my kids now 24 hours. They're driving me crazy. I just want to go back to work. But then I know that when I go back to work, I will be crazy to go back home. So what's, you know, it's very, very difficult. Yeah. But I think that now what I realized and I discovered about myself is that lighting is a part of who I am. The same way I cannot live without my kids, I cannot live without creating, you know, lighting. It's just something that is imprinted in me nowadays. And I always keep telling people, like I see some guys sometimes and they're having this trouble, you know, figuring out stuff. And I go like, dude, look, it's not for everybody. It's not a sin. If you, maybe you don't feel the same way I do, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But just know that you have time in life to just, you can quit this and do something else. Like if
enjoy the thing.
Because people that are like us, lighting freaks, like you recognize them on the spot and you know that there's nothing else that they would do. Like you show me $1 million And I would be tempted, yes. But if I have to quit this, then I just prefer, battling my money, struggling with my money and be happy. That's my choice every time.
True. So Erich, we now have 30 minutes left into the session, and I'd like to ask some questions and maybe just also ask other guys if they have questions for you. We have students, we have also lighting designers, and I feel like it's not just for students, it's just for the lighting freaks, if I know Spike, sometimes the last time he had questions that he didn't ask. So Spike, if you feel like you need to ask something or add something, please feel free to just go ahead and share your views on the subject.
Yes, hi, Erich. I wrote down all of your 10 golden rules. I don't know if I got them correct. But I remember you said something about nobody will ever remember the cues. They just remember the moment. And so I drew a quick picture. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's sort of there. I do a Christmas tour every year. I don't know how we're going to do it this year. And we go around to all the schools and communities around where I live. And sometimes the kids will send us back, thank you notes. And they never remember the colors or whatever, but they often show the actor and a light, if you can see it there. And it's so heartwarming when the kids notice that I helped, that's one thing I'd like to say. And all the other ones, darkness is free. My goodness, what a good line. I often say light to illuminate the actor and shadow to illuminate the magic. That's my golden rule, one of them. And that show or business question, my goodness, that's hard. Like, one thing I've noticed is like not even the Rolling Stones can tour right now. I mean, we, in my little show with 10 lights or there are no Olympics right now. The Rolling Stones can't tour. Metallica can't tour. They can do videos, but they can't tour. They can't go to concerts. And that whole business is changing radically. Anyway, thank you very much. Your humor, your perception. Thank you. You're helping me a lot.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Spike, because I am also doing a Christmas project at home. For a few days into this pandemic, I was like, okay, maybe I need to do something, regarding just messing with a project. So there's this big white building here when I live. It's like an art museum. And so I just did a 3D model and I started to lighting it up and doing some songs where I want the building to dance, exactly for the kids to just go there like, Mom, it's 8:00. I want to see the light show on the, on the art museum, and I just run there and see it. And I think it's exactly that. Like, it's funny how we are all related onto the same aspect of what we want to deliver. You know, I always say that lighting guys are pleasers. You know, it's funny how we want people to remember that as much as we do. Like it's okay if you do a good, like, I've seen some amazing time-coded shows where you go, you know, it blows your mind. Wow. But that's the same thing as like watching a new washing machine work. I go like, wow, look at that. It just, it spins so fast. And then I just turn around and go do something else. You know, I watch a good movie and cry a little and remember that movie for all my life. So that's how I feel, you know. Yes, technology is an ally. So you learn how to use it. You don't have to be robot, you know, and that's what I'm like, my perspective onto light itself is that it creates the climate. It creates, like, it's exactly like you're at home. Like if you want to do you want to do a cold light or do you want to do a warm light? It depends on the environment. Like, how do you feel? You know, if you have an LED lamp, like I do a lot of messing with lighting experiments with my kids. So I have some laser pointers. I have some flashlights, Christmas lights, LED bulbs with that little controller, you know, and I mix the colors. And what I realized from them is that it depends completely on their mood. Like when they're happier and playing, they go for the warm colors. They know that when they go to bed, they have to go a little blue and a little, you know, violet. And it's just as simple as that. Like, that's exactly that. People go to concerts to have an experience, and you're just improving that experience. This is like marketing 101, like why McDonald's is red and yellow, because this is what they want to deliver. You know, it's a place of warmth. It's a place of gathering. And those are the colors that respond better to the human brain, you know? So, you know, it's always about creating. It's always about being able to perceive and apply, you know. Yes, I have this fixture, and yes, it's amazing. And yes, it has 100 macros. You don't have to use them all. You don't have to show them all to the audience. Like, it's not a showcase, you know, like. So yeah, good thing, Spike. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Great. So I think what Danai is bugging me. She's saying our time. We're running out of time. But I have one question that I wanted to ask you. Well, I have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask you, but there's one particular one that I wanted to ask you. You know, I have students that I'm grooming now, because I am the only female at the moment in my country. And it's been a very both amazing and lonely journey for me, you know, and this is why I thought of grooming little girls, so that I can have people that I can talk to about, you know, how like just be talking about the birdies and programming and color and intensity, and I'm able to relate to your story because I'm also in that same space. But you're over there and I'm here. So if I have more girls that are doing exactly what I'm doing, I feel that it won't be as lonely, you know. But keeping these girls encouraged, you know, especially in these times where you mentioned something about being depressed at the beginning of the pandemic. I went through the same phase of just being depressed, and because I'm not used to being confined, you know. So being in that space for the first 3 weeks was the saddest moment of my life, because I was confused. You know, I didn't know what to do with myself. Being at home for a week, it's doable. 3 weeks, it's asking a lot for someone like me. So I want to ask, what advice would you give to these girls who are learning or who are trying to learn about lighting but don't have, number one, a brother who has a company or a friend who will say, listen, this is my theater, come and work in my theater. I learned on the job, and it wasn't easy at all. I mean, even now, the things that I'd like to do, like for instance, I've used Martin Light Jockey number one, and I think number two. But this is just chance and just being in the right place at the right time. And then someone just says, oh, try this out. But we don't have these things. We don't have facilities. We don't have schools. What would you say to these girls that would encourage them to keep pushing and trying and believing and just going forward, regardless of what's on the ground,
Well, that's a very tricky thing, because I think that everybody has a personal background that will pull them into lighting or the industry itself, like audio, LED, whatever it is, attached to theater. I mean, sometimes you're a musician and you just couldn't make it, and you're okay being an audio guy or a backline guy. And sometimes you want to be an actor and you want to learn a little bit more about, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I think that first of all, people have to do that soul searching, that I said, like in the beginning. I think it's very important for people to understand how this works and why it works like that. And then they have to make this choice of, okay, this is what I want to pursue. If they feel comfortable and if they feel that this is the path, this is the way, like if you have a group of girls that really want to do it, I would say that knowledge is power at this point. I would say that we live in such a blessed moment of information, where everything is just, on the tip of your fingers and an internet connection. And I do know that sometimes internet's something that, it's not as fast or good as we would want to be. But I am not one of those guys that spend a lot of time on tutorials of any sort. But I know for a fact that they have so much information over there, like on YouTube and so many places. Like, I feel honored to be able to come here and talk to you guys. And I have dozens of friends that would also feel honored and happy to participate into sharing knowledge, Like we were discussing before we came into the call, like I have friends, I do want to have a project where I get into a plane with 12 other guys and I will land there in Zimbabwe and say, okay, let's do this, so we can do like a 2-week course, hands-on, and say, this is how we rig and this is how, and why. And, because I feel like this is the only way. I grew up in this way. I grew up with guys that were willing to teach me because they sensed into me that I really wanted to learn. It's not something like back in the day, in the 90s, there was this whole thing where I'm a hot shot. I run the AVOs. And then somebody would come and the guy would just like not teach you. Like, this is too hard for you. Yeah. But I always came with a different approach, with a different perspective of things, and I guess that people related to me and passed me that knowledge, which is exactly something that like I feel, I feel lucky to be able to, so I would say that you just have to get these girls and feed them with knowledge. You have to keep their curiosity and their hunger, for learning alive, and this is how we're going to make it. Like, you send me an email, they can send me an email. Everybody on this call can send me an email with their questions, with, whatever. You can draw something on a napkin and send me and say, what do you think? Is this okay? What would you do? And, like, everybody is accessible, I mean, what can happen is I can say, I'm changing diapers and I will call you in 5 minutes. But that's it. We're all connected if we really want to, so that's the main point. So I think what you're doing is magical. I think that these girls are very fortunate because, like I was, like to have people that were willing to pass knowledge, you know, willing to teach you something. And it's also like stories like mine, which was, you know, which there were stories like mine previous, you know. I saw so many guys and I heard so many stories, and I say, one day I'll be there, one day I'll do that, one day I'll accomplish this. And then I just fought for it, and it happened. And of course, I have to say, a little bit of it was luck. Some of it was being at the right place on the right time, but I was prepared.
Exactly.
You know? So that's the thing. Like, if the girls prepare themselves, when that opportunity comes, they'll be ready to grab it, you know, and not let it go. And then who knows, you know, it can be a life-changing thing sometimes, you know, like it's complicated. Like I can relate to you more than an American or a British in a sense, in an economic sense of how our countries relate. But even so, I am really distant. Like there's this gap, this giant abyss between us, the same way that there's this giant abyss between me and the guys from the UK, you know. But that's the thing, like you have to overcome, you know, you have to jump through the obstacles and always keep your mindset into that life. Like, you know, it's not easy, but you know, you have to make the best of what you have. So, you know, and for you guys with the whole equipment shortage situation, it's exactly how I felt in the beginning, looking at the company and looking at these guys like bringing like the cases with wheels and stuff like that. It forces you to be resourceful, you know. I remember the first time I saw an Avolites box and it said from rock to opera, and I said, this is the kind of versatility that I want, you know. I want to be the jack of all trades, the guy that knows my way from a show, from unloading the truck or loading the truck in the company to the last guy to goes out, you know. And this is the kind of versatility that having to deal with issues such as economical problems, such as, you know, military limitations sometimes, like you had like the problems with like police, like I told you, like sometimes I had civil wars going on in favelas while we were doing stuff. So you go through situations where you really take rabbits out of the hats and you go like, wow, okay. So I experience, you know, will come from situations like that. So yeah, they shouldn't give up. They have to be strong.
Great.
And I'll be around. I mean, if you need my help for anything, and you know, I'm pretty sure that once this pandemic is done, like, everybody will be just hunger for, you know, human relations. Like people want to be together. This is, you know, what we are. And I think that this will be a good time for people that do good stuff to do it better, you know, so like sharing knowledge and do projects and, you know, help, you know, everybody out. And so I'm really looking forward for all this to be over, you know. So let's see how long it will take then.
Thank you so much, Erich and Mildred. It was so good to listen to your conversation. And I'm sure that the class is really going to appreciate it. We've come to the end of our program now. It's like 5 minutes to the end. So I'd like to invite you both to maybe share your closing remarks, and then we can wrap it up today. But before you give your closing remarks, I think my question was, have either of you had the opportunity to light up, like to do this lighting on water, like lighting design on water?
I have worked on a show which is called the Sensation. It's like an EDM show, and they brought this technology from abroad, and it was just like a waterfall, and you could do laser projection, like mapping on it. There are systems that can be like the Las Vegas, fountains. They are on a system that runs DMX, and then the lights, they work together with it. I have never done it myself. I have only done like a single hose. So I would go like on and off from my console, but there was nothing much. But water is kind of complicated, right? Because we're always messing with electricity. So it has to be a very well planned project to happen. But it's definitely something that we can explore. What I wanted to do at one concept of show that I had, it was to actually blow steam of water onto the stage, so that way I could, instead of having like a haze, have a projected light onto the steam itself, like a very, thin water. But it never happened because of the musical instruments, and so we still have there's a lot of fixtures now that are water resistant. Some of them are waterproof. So if, in the future, something will happen for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Erich. We're going to be having for our next session, Michael Curry. And so we look forward to everyone here who's been present today and before to coming as well. We'll have some of our students joining us. And Erich, you're really welcome to join us for the next session as well. We really enjoyed your session, and I'm sure Mildred has something to share before we go. Okay. Mildred? I think her internet connection.
We lost her.
Sorry?
Yeah, her connection is a bit. So Michael Curry is a puppet designer, and so he's going to be bringing a new dynamic to our conversation. We've been having conversations about lighting, but lighting design. But Michael Curry is a puppet designer from the United States, and he is the one who designed the puppets in the Lion King theater production. So this is going to be a very interesting addition to our conversation, and we're looking forward to all the lighting designers that have been participating so far. And Erich, we really would love for you to come. The date, Mildred, what's the date for Michael? Can you hear me?
It's on the 11th of October.
Okay, so Michael is going to be on the 11th of October.
My network is really, Michael is on the 11th of October.
Okay, so we have Michael on the 11th of October. If we don't have your email address, please do share it with us. You can send an email to phenomenalsolutionszw@gmail.com. And I'll repeat that one more time, phenomenalsolutionszw@gmail.com. And you can also contact us on Facebook, and we will send you the link to the next meeting. So thank you so much to everyone for coming. I've seen some of the students joined during the call. So there are some students, Erich, who've already met you in person, who are here, and some of them, the rest of them are going to have to watch the recording of the event later. Spike, so much for the, Spike, thank you for the support. I see there's some friends of Erich as well that were in the call. I think Louis Bastos, thank you. And to the whole class, thank you. And Munyaradzi, thank you as well. If there's anyone I haven't mentioned by name, it's because my screen is not showing everyone at the current time, but I'm just saying the people that I remember seeing when I had like a gallery view on. So thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session. Our session has ended now. I think I've just taken over Mildred's closing remarks because her network is a bit low right now, so she's not going to be able to speak. Am I right, Mildred? Yeah, I think I was right. So thank you so much, and
Thank you,
have
everybody.
a
Once
good
more,
rest
I
of the
just
evening. We'll see you soon.
want to thank you all for the time. And just if you want to reach me out on either Instagram or Facebook or my email, feel free. It will be my pleasure to just help out and add with anything I can. Okay.
Thank you
Cheers,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Erich. You rock.
Bye bye.
Bye.